I want to say, Pastor, I was actually processing this talk late January. Last time we spoke before this time, he said, yes, I want you to speak in late January. So in my head, I've been preparing for this. And in good fashion, he calls me and he said, can you do it January 8th? January 8th. I got this to do. And I said, you know what? There's a reason that I need to do this right now, just because not only is it at the beginning of the year, but we were just on vacation, my husband and I, and seeing the state of health in folks is scary. As a healthcare provider on a very different spectrum compared to medical doctors, I see folks who've been in the system and they want out, they just don't know how to get out. And when you're making a lifestyle change, it has to start with a why. I have folks that come in all the time, Dr. Ada, I'm sick, I'm in pain, I want to get out of pain, I want to get off my medication, I give them tools, and 2 years later, they're still in the same boat. And I look at them, I'm like, well, why do you want to make this change? But if your why isn't strong enough, it's not going to push you to make any sort of change. So if you go to that first slide there, we're going to get right into it, because just like Pastor says, I'm low-key pushy. But sometimes you got to push people out of their comfort zone, right? This first slide that they're going to put up, it is actually a demographic. It's a chart of the United States, and this is actually in the last 2 years. And this is specifically for us folks of a darker hue, and it shows the stats of obesity, not overweight, obesity in the United States. And I circled our region, and I pointed an arrow, and it's kind of hard to see, but on average, 40 to 45% of folks that look like us are reported obese. This is self-reporting. It's not the doctor saying yes. This is you saying, yes, I'm obese. But now I understand that we don't have the right tools to change this. All right? Next slide. Pastor said health is wealth, and that's very, very true. However, I want folks to start to understand that health is how your body is actually healing. If you look at the root word of health, it's what? Heal. Health is not just the absence of symptoms or sickness, right? Health is how my body recovers from something. Think about all these folks who got COVID and they have long COVID. I have a lot of Marines. If you look at them, they are the epitome of health, right? But they've got all sorts of stuff going on, and you would never know because looking at them, they look healthy, but their body isn't healing. So we're going to go on to the next slide. We're going to talk about intermittent fasting. And I remember when I first started to introduce this to my practice, a lot of folks were scared. They're like, you want me to starve myself? Yes. Most of us have enough food within our bodies stored in different pockets to last a lifetime. Right? No shade. I know I look like a skinny mini, but hey, right? That's, nope, low-key pushy. Low-key pushy, right? But that next slide, and I want you to leave that slide up because it's very important that we talk about the different types of fasting because everyone has to fast very differently. And sometimes you got to try a few different fasts in order for it to work for you, right? So we're going to go down the list here. There's intermittent fasting. Well, what is that? That's going anywhere from 13 to 15 hours without food. I remember the very first person I said this to, they said, you want me to go that long without eating? I said, listen, homeboy, the majority of the time you're sleeping. Oh, I didn't think about that part. You're sleeping majority of that time, right? So this is your eating window. The second one is autophagy fasting. I want you guys to say autophagy. I'm a firm believer in knowledge is power, right? And if we don't understand what these words are, you're not going to be able to use it. So we're going to talk about autophagy here in a moment, but autophagy is one of the most important things to factor into intermittent fasting, right? Autophagy fasting starts at 17 hours of no food. And once you guys begin to understand what autophagy does to the body, you guys are going to wish you were fasting 20 years ago, right? The next one is a gut reset fast. And this is the one that hit me personally because I've had years of gut health issues, and I didn't even realize that it was my gut that was causing a lot of the hormonal health issues that I had, right? So for those of you who have gut health issues, meaning you're not passing bowels on the regular, right? You've got skin issues, you have hormonal imbalance. I want you to focus on this type of fast. The fourth one is the fat burner fast. This is 36 hours of fasting, which means for 36 hours, you are not consuming any food. I have patients that have had no food for 26 days. No food. And guess what? They're still walking around. They're still alive, right? We also have the happiness fast, right? So those of you who are possibly going through depression, maybe had a death in the family, maybe need just an extra, something to push you out of your comfort zone, that's a 48-hour fast. And then the last one, immune reset fast. And at this time of the year, I think this is probably one of the most important because I'm actually going through some stuff myself. I got a little bit of a sore throat and people are like, you get sick, Dr. Ada? It's not about sickness, right? When you think of the word sickness, I want you to not associate a cough. I don't want you to associate fever with sickness. Sickness is cancer. Sickness is autoimmune disease. If you have a sore throat, if you have a fever, if you've got diarrhea, if you're vomiting all the time, that is actually your body responding in the most perfect way. Honor that. Just like Pastor said, our bodies are our temple. Our bodies know exactly what to do at the right time, but we've been taught as a society to suppress it. Take this if you're feeling like this, right? If you've got a fever, take this Tylenol to bring that fever down. One of the things I'm teaching a lot of the mothers in our practice is if your baby is teething, stop giving them Tylenol. Teething actually is a rite of passage, right? All that teeth coming through, it does not feel good. Could you imagine being an adult and having all of your teeth coming in at the same time? But that pain that child goes through teaches them that they can do this. If you suppress their ability to go through something, you're shortchanging them. Also, we understand that Tylenol actually affects the gut like none other. It actually creates an environment that good bacteria cannot survive, right? So the next slide, and I want you to keep this up as well. The benefits of intermittent fasting. And if you guys are taking notes, I want you guys to start writing this down. There's about 11 different things here, and I won't go over all of them, but that word autophagy comes back up. And I'm going to read you this straight from the literature to make sure that I do not mess this up because I want you guys to really understand this. Autophagy is a Greek word. Auto means self, right? Phagy means to eat. It means to eat oneself. When your body determines that there isn't enough food to eat, it starts searching your cells for anything you don't need. Autophagy, right? So, in most basic science, autophagy allows the strong, healthy cells to run the show. The strong cells will eat the weak ones so that they stop replicating. For most folks in a sick state, an unhealthy state, they have replication of a lot of aberrant or sick cells, which is why most folks just feel sluggish, tired, overweight all the time, because guess what cells are replicating? The bad ones. The great thing about long-term fasting, lifestyle fasting, is guess what? You're allowing those healthy cells to kill and eat and get rid of the bad cells. Pretty awesome, right? The next one, I want you guys to say BDNF. What is BDNF? It is one of the most powerful things that I think fasting, besides autophagy, does. It is actually protein within your body that helps with the mental health. Let me make sure I get this correct. In order to improve brain function, you have to make sure that certain protein doesn't build up within the brain. Two things. Plaque, we associate plaque with cardiovascular disease, right? Clogging up the plaque or clogging up the cardiovascular system. Think about what's happening in the brain. I have so many patients who have mental health issues. Some, they don't realize it, some of them are being medicated for it, and it's still not working. Their brains are foggy beyond belief. And one of the things that they're missing is BDNF. It's brain-derived neurotropic factor. Say that 10 times, right? And what that is the body's ability and the brain's ability to clean itself. Did you know that? Did you know that your brain can actually clean and heal itself? But it can't do so if you're constantly feeding yourself with the wrong foods. The next thing I want to talk about is HGH, human growth hormone. Now, this is evident for a lot of folks who want to build muscle, right? And HGH is very, very important. It's a small protein that's produced in the pituitary gland. And besides activating autophagy, human growth hormone initiates changes in the metabolism to promote fat burning, saves your proteins, and builds muscles. This all happens when you're not eating food. So those of you that are sitting there wondering, I don't know if fasting, I don't know if I want to give up XYZ. If I haven't given you some reasons not to, I don't know what's going to change. Cancer. What if I told you each and every one of you guys are sitting here right now and you have cancer within your body right now? Cancer is in your body right now. But guess what? It's your body's ability to detect it, break it down, and pass it out. The great thing about fasting is that when you get to the autophagy phase, cancer cannot survive in your body. The body's ability to recognize it, oh, that's a rogue cell, we need to kill it and eliminate it, happens when you're not fasting or when you are fasting. So for those of you who have family lineage of cancer within your body, well, guess what? You can change that. You can change that. I look at my family right now. We grew up kind of like with pastor. We didn't have a whole lot of sugar in our family. And one of the things that I didn't realize this, but when I got my car, one of the first things I wanted to do is I wanted to go to the Popeyes drive-thru. I wanted to go to the McDonald's drive-thru to get that thing that my parents did not allow us to have. And when I first ate it, it didn't taste very good. Why? Because my taste palate had already been trained for certain kind of foods. Shout out to my mom and dad, right? Back then, I was so angry. But when it comes to changing a way a family thrives, parents, I need you to change. Not only for yourself, but for your children. As a corrective care, pediatric, and maternity chiropractor, I have the privilege of seeing folks of all ages, of all types, right? Our youngest practice member is seven days old. We just checked her on Thursday. Our oldest practice member, I don't think she's here today. She's 90. Oh, there she is. She's 92? 97. 97 years old, got her adjustment the other day. So I see such a broad spectrum of folks, but I start to see the changes in our children. I'm now seeing kids at 9, 10 years old being diagnosed with high blood pressure, diabetes, eczema. I can tell just by how someone walks, for the most part, what's going on inside their body. And parents, whether you want to realize this or not, your children are watching you. They're listening to you, but they're watching you. How do I know this? My little 9-year-old, when I'm holding her and I'm brushing my teeth, she's watching me brush my teeth. When she's crawling on the ground, she always likes to take paper and she's wiping the floor. She's already cleaning because she watches me clean. You're 9 months. Did I say 9 years old? She acts like a 9-year-old. I see you, right? But parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, if you have children within your reach, I need you to start to change. We have a generation of kids that will not outlive us. Let's get back to fasting. The next slide, I want you to keep this up. So, for folks that are writing things down, one of the most important things about autophagy, we already talked about the benefits of it, but what stimulates autophagy? So while you're fasting, while you're not consuming food, these are things that you can do to increase your body's ability to get into that autophagy state. The first one on there is coffee. Well, Dr. Ada, I thought you said coffee's toxic. It's got heavy mold in it. Well, it does, but it's how you consume it. You want to make sure that if you're drinking coffee, it's not the gas station coffee, it's not the McDonald's coffee. It's a good, healthy, organic, non-GMO, right? But it also has to be consumed without creamer. black, dark, no sugar, right? And if you want a little bit of flavor, guess what? You can add cinnamon to it. You can add butter to it. Butter? Why would I want to put butter in my coffee? Well, butter is a good, healthy fat. Well, I'm trying to lose fat. Well, guess what happens? If you consume good, healthy fat in the body, that's the stuff that the body feeds off of. It's going to help break down the bad fat so that you can eliminate it. What's also really good about fat is that it slows down your body's ability to absorb bad stuff. So yes, for those of you who are drinking coffee, I've given you permission to do so, but you've got to be mindful of how you consume it. I know my husband's looking at me like, I'm on him all the time about that. Green tea. If you're someone who just needs that caffeine fix, green tea, of course you want to consume it on a healthier version. Turmeric. Miss Tracy. Turmeric toddy. Turmeric is my everything. If you're someone who suffers from inflammation, a lot of us women, turmeric is your everything. MCT oil. There's so many things there that will help with autophagy. Now, the next slide I want you to put up is, why do I need to fast? Who needs to fast? I want everyone to close their eyes for a moment. That way there's no judgment. You're not looking at somebody you saw walking in earlier, but I want you to close your eyes. You need to fast if you are tired of being sick and tired. If you're someone who feels like they need to lose weight, if you feel like mentally you're not strong like you should be, if you feel weak, if your emotions are all over the place, if you have hormonal imbalance. One of the things that I'm seeing so much in our office when it comes to women is PCOS. Even if you look in the mirror and you say, well, I look good, but you know inside you don't feel good, guess what? You need to fast. The next slide here, and one of my mentors, Dr. Mindy, she is huge on fasting, but I want to read this to you. Adipose tissue, aka body fat, is the trash can of excess sugar, hormones, and toxins. Did you know that your body converts all the junk that we eat into fat and stores it onto our body? For women, it's mostly right around here, right? For men, it gets dispersed, and usually it's right through here. But that should tell you how amazing our bodies are, that it's going to grab toxin and store it somewhere so it's not constantly flowing through the body. The great thing about fasting is it goes straight to that type of bad fat first, breaks that down. To continue on, all converted into fat and deposited into adipose tissue for storage. So when you fast, you begin to undo this process. You're now giving the body permission and asking the body to look for and burn stored fat for fuel. Okay. I want you to fast forward the slide to the how. Now, we're going to talk about different types of fast. And the reason why we have multiple ones here is because there's not going to be one thing that fits everyone, right? The Daniel fast, while it's awesome for most people, being a practitioner now, a chiropractor now for going on 9 years, but I just realized this, I've been studying nutrition for 24 years, since I was 18 years old. And I've seen the trend, the different diets, the Mediterranean, and what used to work for a lot of people just isn't anymore. Something else has to change. So you'll see there are 6 different types of fast up there. The most common one, you'll see the 6 to 8. What does that mean? The number in front, that 16 is your fasting hours, right? Those are the time that you're not eating. Some of that you're sleeping. The 8 hours is your eating window, right? So they call this timed fasting. The next one you'll see over there is an 18 to 6, right? So you're fasting for 18 hours, not consuming any food, and you have a 6-hour eating window. And so when I'm talking to folks about this, they're like, well, when do I eat breakfast if I'm fasting like this? I want you guys to write this down. Breakfast. We've been taught that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and it is. However, you have to understand what breakfast is. It's actually breaking your fast. That first meal is extremely important because it's going to allow your body to either stay in autophagy, if you're going for ketosis, which we're not even going to dive into because that's a whole nother realm, right? But in this healing state, that first meal is incredibly important, right? So we're going to talk about some of those foods that will help break your fast. Now, for most of us, I think that 16 to 8 window is perfect. We're going to talk about how we're going to implement that in our daily lives. But for some of us, we need to start straight off the bat with a 36-hour fast. For show of hands, who is interested in that? Not many hands went up, but enough. Now, the only reason why I'm recommending a 36-hour fast for most folks is because it's grueling. It's mentally tough. But the results afterwards are amazing. At the end of my teaching today, I'm going to put up the office phone number. It's textable. I want everyone, and you can even do that now, if you are interested in guidance, right? Even if you're not a practice member, you are able to text our office. I want you to leave your first and last name, an email address, and the best time to reach you, and we'll reach out to you to help guide. Because there are some of you guys that doing this, you need some guidance, especially if you're on medication, especially if you're nursing, especially if you're in a health state that needs guidance. But we'll talk about that here in a moment. But the how. The next thing I want you guys to write down is why. Why do you guys want to do this? My biggest why for what I do and what I do is I want to make sure that my child has people to look up to. I want to make sure that each and every one of you are living to your fullest potential, because I come across a lot of folks who have all the potential in the world, but they can't get there. They can't get there. Why? Because physically they can't get there. Mentally they can't get there. Emotionally they cannot get there. Believe it or not, you are for someone else. Your gifts and talents are for someone else. And if you can't even utilize that, what are we here for? So each and every one of you guys, if fasting is going to be your way out, you have to attach a why to it. For some folks, it's, I just want to be able to ride in the car on a family trip and not have to stop every hour just to use the bathroom. That was actually one of my practice members. They travel from here to Florida on a regular basis, and what's normally a 6-hour trip turns into a 9-hour trip because she's got to stop all the time to use the bathroom. In the last 2 years, she's like, we could almost make it all the way down there and I don't have to use the restroom. 76 years old. I had another why. Doc, I just want to be able to get on the ground with my grandchildren. I have a mom, she's like, I can't even play with my kids in the morning because I'm so tired. That why has to be strong enough for you to take that next step, right? Arm yourself with knowledge. One of the great things about New Beginnings, my church, our church, is that you can't say I didn't know. You cannot say, I don't know. I didn't know that. Where you been? You haven't been here. You haven't been watching on YouTube. You've got to be armed with tools. The type of practice members that come into my office, I have some folks that do a research up and down. I'm looking at them like, if you bring another article into this bay. And then I have some folks who have no idea what is going on. They don't have the tools to even ask the questions to even know what's going on. So my job as an advocate for your health, and every one of you, if you have a doctor that you go to on the regular, they should be an advocate for your health. They shouldn't be in charge of your health. And as an advocate for your health, my job is to give you the tools to help live your life as best as possible. And this is one of the best tools. And for some of you guys, you just have to start. Just start. Just do it. I have a practice member and I've been beating him over the head. We've done probably since August 5 nutritional consults. And the last time I saw him, I said, okay, have we tried this? No, doc, this happened, that happened. I said, look, something's gonna happen every day, all day. Sometimes you just gotta do it, right? The next thing is surround yourself with others who are fasting. And I didn't even bring this up to Pastor, but I think a connect group that we may have to start is a fasting connect group. I think that would be actually really helpful because when you're surrounded with like-minded folks, right, it makes you stronger. Man, I've been going through this. Does anyone have any advice on how to get through this? Is anyone experiencing this? Oh, guess what, guys? I lost 15 pounds. I think starting a connect group for fasting would be incredible. And the reason why I say this is Dr. Mindy, one of my mentors, she's incredible. I'm part of her reset group, and she has hundreds of thousands of people in this group. And if you scroll through and you're reading through all the miracles happening with people just by not eating food, think about if that happened to us, right? You know what? I will start that. I will start that. I will start that. Ooh, another hat. Okay. Okay. I can do this. I can do this. The next thing I want you guys to all understand is give yourself some grace. A lot of this is not our fault. Actually, majority of this is not our fault. A lot of us have been giving very faulty information. A lot of us have been duped, right? A lot of the food that's on this earth right now is not the same foods that your grandparents were eating. And so recognizing that we've got to do things different. We've got to maneuver different. We've got to eat differently. We've got to be purposeful in our intentions when it comes to our health. So this thing of, I don't want to do this because, my grandma and grandpa still been cooking this same way. That's got to change. But you got to give yourself some grace, right? If you look in the mirror and you've been fasting for a month and you've lost a little bit of weight, that's okay. Because if you've been on this earth for 50, 55 years, it's going to take more than a month. It's going to take more than 6 months. For some of us, it's going to take a couple years, right? I saw Miss Sherry walk through, and guess who elbowed me? My husband. I'm like, look at Miss Sherry. That's what you looking at Miss Sherry for. But I'm looking at Miss Sherry like, go ahead, Miss Sherry, right? Just start and continue. And keep going, right? She's got her family. She's got her office. She's got many members here that have encouraged her. She's got a tribe. And I encourage all of you, find your tribe. If your tribe is here, let us help you, right? And the last one is avoid processed and unhealthy foods before and after your fast. This is incredible. I had a patient. She has been fasting for many, many, many years. And if you look at her, you'd be like, I don't see what's changed, right? We call that a yo-yo faster. She'll go many, 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 many days without eating, 21, 28, 32, but her refeeding process is terrible. So what I want to do is go to that next slide. It's the one that's got the 4 different types of ways that we're going to implement fasting. And so if you guys can, if you have the ability to take pictures of this, if not, I will make sure that you guys get this information. But how are we going to implement this into our everyday lives? The first one that you'll see there is called the alternate day fasting. And I think this is probably one of the best ones. The alternate day fasting and the eat, stop, eat are really great ways to start your fasting journey. This is helping people just start. Right? Some of us can't just go straight off the bat, 12 hours of non-eating. We've got to, eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner one day, the next day not eat. And then the next day refeed, and the next day not. And every week, you keep increasing your body's ability to not eat food, right? But the key thing is then when you do eat food, it's very purposeful. It's refeeding the nutrients that your body needs to last through that fast, right? So I will make sure that everyone gets this slide. That way you can pick and choose, or if you have questions, you've seen it, and then if you need further consultation, we're here for you. That next one, how to break a fast, this is probably the most important slide that is on here because I want to make sure that when you're in your refeeding state, that you're not going to completely fall off the wagon because I see this a lot. That first one is bone broth. I don't know, that person's not here today. Doc, how do I refeed myself after I haven't eaten any food? Bone broth. You can either make it or buy it. I'm a little lazy right now because I got a baby, so I buy it. Bone broth. You can buy them in cartons, organic. I put cayenne pepper in it, and I sip on that bad boy 8 ounces every morning. Right? The reason why bone broth is so important is, one, it's got healthy fat, it's got healthy protein, but it's going to give your body the necessary tools to heal, right? The next thing in there is probiotic food. Now, I know a lot of folks have been hearing probiotics this, probiotics that. Probiotics is extremely important. We're going to talk about this here in a moment when it comes to our microbiome, our gut. But the reason why probiotics is extremely important when you're fasting is because it's going to feed the good bacteria that communicates with the brain, right? The next one is steamed veggies, especially this time of the year. And many of my practice members who've had nutritional consults, they've heard me say, you have to eat for the season. Right now is a time for steamed vegetables. It's not a season for raw vegetables, which is why eating salad at this time of the year for most folks doesn't really work. You don't have the necessary enzymes and bacteria to break down food because we're not outside like we're used to, right? Most people didn't even realize that. So steamed vegetables, especially after a fast, you want to be easy on the gut because you haven't been consuming anything. And the last thing is consuming healthy protein. And I know meats and chickens and fish have gotten a bad name right now. I have a lot of patients like, oh, I can't even stand the sight of meat. There's a reason for that, because we've been poisoned, right? A lot of the meat protein out there, you have to think about what have they been eating? What have they been consuming? If they've been consuming junk, their meat is junk. And if you're consuming that junky meat, guess what you turn into, right? So if you're going to be refeeding with protein, you've got to be very purposeful, right? I want you guys to write this down. It's got to be organic, right? It's got to be grass-fed / grass-finished, which means that that meat has only had grass, alfalfa, greens. I don't think you guys realize this, but grass-fed beef, if it doesn't say grass-fed, grass-finished, the last couple months that that animal's been on this earth, they'll feed it a bunch of grain at the last minute to bulk it up. I had one practice member, well, what are they supposed to eat? They're only supposed to forage. Cows are not supposed to be eating grains and corn. Their digestive system can't handle that, right? So the next slide, and Pastor really, really wanted me to focus on gut health. And gut health for most folks, they don't even know what that even means. But like he said, your gut is your second brain. Junk food in, junk food out. And this actually hits personal for me because for longest time, I didn't know how depressed I was. I used to call myself skinny fat. I could eat anything in the world and not gain any weight until I hit 36. And I started to see the changes in my body, right? For the most part, I ate healthy, but your microbiome. Did you know that the good bacteria in your brain, or in your gut, help feed the brain? The good bacteria literally send text messages to your brain so that you can live a healthy, purposeful life. But the very opposite happens. The bad bacteria in your gut also send messages to your brain. They send messages like, go ahead, eat that Twinkie. Go ahead, go through that drive-through. Even though that Chick-fil-A drive-through is, 30 minutes long, and you were supposed to be somewhere 10 minutes ago, but it says, no, it's okay. It's Chick-fil-A, right? Go ahead and eat that ice cream at 2 o'clock in the morning. Some of it we can't even help. It's within our gut. I'm going to read this to you. The balance of good to bad bacteria in your gut controls how many calories you eat and are converted to fat. So if you have enough good, healthy bacteria, your body is going to burn fat way more efficiently. Modern life is full of toxins that hurt your gut bacteria, antibiotics, stress, and environmental pollutants decimate good bacteria, creating an imbalance of bad and good bacteria, leading to you to store fat in your body. I came from the generation of Bed Bath & Beyond. You couldn't tell me nothing about the lotions and the potions from that store, right? All this, ladies, we love that store, the candles. But what if I told you those things were probably one of the most toxic things to our bodies? We call those obesogens or endocrine disruptors. And it literally changes the way your body actually functions. And then now we start to store fat. Right? The last thing here, you inherit your gut microbiome from your mom. Right? And the foundation for gut health is late in the first 3 years of life. I have a patient who, her granddaughter will not eat food. She wants chips. She wants ice cream. She literally will not eat food. And I said, well, what did mom eat while she was pregnant? Oh, she just ate everything. What you consume went directly to the baby. And when that baby is living on earth, their taste buds, their affinity for certain foods was dictated on what you ate. My husband and I were joking, we're now introducing solids to baby girl, and what's one of her favorite foods right now? Collard greens. No sugar, but spicy. A 9-month-old can handle spice? Well, I wish I had a picture of her. She was eating broccoli, literally eating broccoli. My mom was like, what? Give that girl a cookie. No, Mom. Broccoli, right? So parents, right? Grandparents, especially grandparents. I know you want to spoil your grandkids, and we love that. But please, honor your children's requests. Please go easy on them. If you're going to give them a cookie, give them 2 things of broccoli. I'm seeing something here. Pastor, if you're going to give them candy, give them some broccoli. Right? Fast forward to the slide that says gut brain, right? Equally, if your gut microbiome is imbalanced, your overall mood can be affected. How many of you guys have teenagers? Okay. How many of you guys notice that your teenagers, what is wrong with my child? 0 to 100 with the quickness. Well, what are they eating? What are they consuming? What do they have for breakfast? Did they even eat breakfast? What are they eating at lunch? What's the school serving for lunch? What did you fix them for dinner? What kind of snacks do you have? Let's be honest here. I had a young lady, she is now 12, and she's always tired. And I'm looking at mom like, what's going on with her daughter? So I finally just asked the daughter, I said, what's going on? She says, oh, I hate my school lunch. I said, what's wrong with school lunch? It tastes terrible. So I look at mom, I said, Mom, it's time to start packing her a lunch. Oh, I don't have the time. Parents, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm a parent now, and I get it. But the way your child sees this world is through your lens, and it's through your action. And so if you're wondering, why is my child behaving this way? Well, what did you do to influence this? Think about that, right? That's because the activity of your gut bacteria affects stress and anxiety. I didn't even know what stress and anxiety was when I was in middle school. Yet all these kids are coming in, Doc, I feel anxious. Spell anxious. What do you know about anxious? But they do. I had a 9-year-old come in with her tablet and said, Dr. Ada, what do you know about this? What do you know about this? Our kids are telling us something's wrong. And it's up to you as a parent, as a neighbor, as a grandparent, as an aunt or uncle to listen to your children and do everything in your power to make sure that you are setting the example. So let's talk about what we don't want to do in our fast. Let's go to the next slide. So when we're not consuming any food, that's a time for your body to break things down. But when it's time to refeed, we want to make sure that you're eating enough calories to sustain life, right? We want to make sure that when you're refeeding, that you're being very purposeful in your nutrients. I was looking at a nutritional consult. I have, 10 of them on Friday, so I'm going through all of them. And I have someone who's fasting, but they're refeeding with fast food. Doc, I don't have time to cook. So they pick and choose things, in the fast food diet. And I'm like, What you're refeeding yourself is not nutrient dense enough. Fasting and then overeating. The woman I was telling you about who's fasted so many times but doesn't look like she's been fasting, one of the things that we're working with her is, how do you refeed to sustain? Because one of the things that she's used to doing is fasting and then going out to a party, going to K&W, right? Eating that pie that she's been waiting to eat. fasting should change your brain chemistry. It should change the way you see food. Food is for fuel. Food is not your best friend. Food is not for comfort. Food is to sustain life so that you can live out your purpose. So when you're fasting, that's something that mentally you need to really focus on and manifest, right? We want to make sure that you're drinking enough water. Fasting doesn't mean not consuming anything, but you need to consume specific liquids. And for most of us, not just water, adding things like lemon, adding turmeric, right? Adding things that your body needs to get to autophagy, right? And one of the things that I want to deliver is obsessing with arbitrary fasting times. If you're someone new to fasting and you're like, oh my God, I think I'm dying, I'm going to pass out, but I still have 2 more hours of fasting, just go ahead and refeed. Don't kill yourself, right? This is a process that your body is going through, right? So pay attention to your body. Or I had someone like, well, doc, I'm not hungry, but it's time for me to eat. Well, guess what? Don't eat. If you're not hungry, your body's telling you, I'm good. I'm feeding off of what's happening on the inside. I have enough fuel. We're good. So don't obsess over that time. Oh my God, it's 7:30. It's okay. Pay attention to your body. Now, this next slide is very, very important because there are some folks who should not fast. Or if you're going to fast, you need to communicate with a healthcare provider to make sure that you're doing this as safe as possible, right? So who shouldn't fast? If you are someone who's underweight or has had history of eating disorder, right? If you're pregnant and nursing, especially if you're pregnant, you can't fast. You're too hungry all the time. Like, that's not even a thing. But especially if you're nursing, you definitely do not want to fast because the food that you're consuming is actually being given to someone else, right? Any children under 18 years old. Now, with that being said, if there's something specifically going on, then yes, you need to communicate with a healthcare provider, but we do not want to create any type of eating issues with children, because I've seen that also, and I've seen that go way far left, right? Now, should fast with supervision. If you're taking any type of medication, you make sure that the provider that is managing your medication, you communicate to them that, hey, I would like to fast. What do you think? If they tell you no, ask why. If they can't give you a reason why, find another healthcare provider. Remember, I said your doctor should be an advocate for your health. They should not be in control of your health. If I was in control of y'all's health, we would all be sitting here with broccoli and water with lemon. Every time we would have a church function, no, pastor, we're doing organic. You do not want me to be in control of your health, right? But I want you to be in control of your health. I want you to be an advocate for yourself, right? If you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, this demographic is very, very important because we didn't even get to dive into insulin resistance, which is one of the great things about fasting. I have 2 patients right now who are completely off their diabetes medication. Thank God. And I remember when their doctor sent me a letter saying that you are giving advice when it's not warranted. I'm going to leave it at that, right? Basically practicing medicine without a medical license. And so my communication back to him was like, no, I didn't tell them to. What I did is I gave them tools to improve their health. And by improving their health, if they're no longer on medication, shouldn't you be happy? Shouldn't you be saying, hey, what did you do or what did you say? Because this patient has been a patient of mine for 25 years and I couldn't get them to budge. If your healthcare provider is not helping you promote your health, find a new one. Do not be afraid to come there with a pen and paper and ask questions. One of the things that I emphasize a lot with my practice members is write down everything you have a question about and email it to me. Bring it to me. I'll do my best to communicate with you. If you can't do that with your other healthcare providers, find somebody different. Because if these healthcare providers were actually doing their job, that first slide would not be that. Why do you go to a doctor every year, but you're still taking the same dosage, the same 3 high blood pressure medication, the same dosage of metformin? Some of you guys, it's even increasing. Why are you still going to that doctor? They're not managing your health. They're not even doing anything. And the last one is if you have gout or high uric acid. Now, for folks who have gout, and most people don't even realize this, but uric acid is a byproduct of fasting, right? And so if you're already someone who tends to lean that way, you should really be fasting with a healthcare provider, right? So the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with, this last slide, there's no better time for a reset. There's always going to be something in the way of you making changes within your health. So when I say just start, just do something, that's exactly what I mean. It's a little hard to read, but if you don't have to sit in the misery of what happened yesterday. You can actually step into the promise, the positivity, and the miraculous body today to create a whole new future. Health is wealth. What is the point of accumulating all of this wealth if you're not going to be able to enjoy it? If you can't spend your money, what's the point of accumulating it? So with that being said, I don't know if Pastor left any time for Q&A, but go to the next slide. If we don't have any time, and you would like further guidance on this, if the tools that we've given you here just aren't enough, or if you have very specific questions, I want you guys to text the office. It's 910-406-1200. And I want you to leave your first and last name, an email address, and any other details that you may have. Don't send me like a long paragraph, but yes, I'm interested in fasting and I need some guidance, or I have this ailment going on and I would like to fast, but I don't know how to. And what we're going to try to take on, I've got my full staff, I've got my office manager back, so we're ready to rock and roll for this new year. We want to help you be a better version of yourself. So we will respond back with any of the slides that you need, or if you need a sit-down consultation, I do it via Zoom, in person, or over the phone, and we'll let you know what that entails and go from there.